Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. And welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we sit down with successful attorneys, legal innovators, and business leaders to explore what it really takes to build a thriving firm. We go beyond the courtroom to discuss leadership, profitability, operations, technology, AI, and the strategies that help firms grow, scale, and create lasting value. Whether you're a managing partner, an emerging firm leader, or someone passionate about the future of the legal profession, our goal is simple: to provide you with practical insights that you can put to work immediately. Today, we are pleased to welcome John Mashni, founder of Rendios Law in the Greater Lansing, Michigan area. John is an attorney, entrepreneur, author, investor, professor, podcast host, and storyteller who's built a career around advising entrepreneurs, business owners, startups, artists, and creators. His legal practice focuses on business transactions, intellectual property, tax, startup, entertainment, and outside general counsel work. His career has included time at established law firms, teaching law, working with entrepreneurs and creatives, and now building Rendios Law around more relationship-centered approach to practicing law. Outside of that practice, John hosts the Intense Life podcast, writes about the reinvention and intentional living, and even creates children's books with his family. So today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, intellectual property, building a modern law firm, AI, storytelling, and ultimately how attorneys can build businesses and careers with greater intention. John, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thanks for the great intro.
Well, that intro paints a really interesting picture of an individual, and I'd like you to tell me your background story. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, I have a law firm, part of a law firm, practicing attorney, right? And I would say transactional attorney generally, but I, didn't think about even being a lawyer until I was about 30 years old. I worked for about 10 years before I went to law school. I went to film school, actually, many, many years ago, 26 years ago now. And I really had no intention of going to law school until age 30, and then went back to school and thought, hey, this would be a great addition to my educational background. Hey, I have a law degree. And then did really well in law school, got a summer associate position at the biggest firm in Lansing, was there for that summer, went really well. They hired me full time. I was there for about 10 years and really enjoyed the experience. I feel like got a great education, was around fantastic attorneys. And then I went to an even bigger firm and based out of Atlanta. And that was another good move. Really gave me a lot more options. And frankly, the environment was fantastic as well. Then started a firm with a partner. And then kind of started Rendios from that. So it's been kind of a crazy journey, but there's been tons of good lessons. And really, I got to learn how law firms work at a big firm, even bigger firm, and then, starting a firm with a partner, and then starting a firm just by myself. And that firm has grown Rendios to have multiple attorneys, multiple other people, multiple paralegals. And really, it's everything that I learned over 15 years plus of being a part of a law practice, and plus, in the 10 years plus of being in business, starting other businesses, everything that I've learned in those 25 years now, we're implementing at Rendios, and it's been pretty cool.
So you've had the ability to pick and choose the good things from all those different experiences and refine it into what you now have at Rendios.
That's exactly right. Yeah, perfect.
Because big firms and other firms do things very well, but they also have their rigidity and their expectations that are sometimes unrealistic. I mean, you see a lot of firms that are created out of people who are tired of 2,000 charge hours and tired of working weekends and nights and saying, hey, I want to have a little more control of my life. So I noticed on your website that you describe Wendios as providing strategic legal services, and you tell clients that your goals become our goals. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I think, just part of how I operate and how I've learned to do business from really smart entrepreneurs, really great mentors. Every transaction has to be a win-win, right? So I want to know what's a win for our client, especially when we're doing our discovery call. I really dig in, like, what do you really want? Like, what's the ultimate goal? And I think when I know what they want, and then they know, hey, my goal is to help serve them. And do we have the skill set? And I'll be honest with them, can we help or not? When I know what they want, it allows me then to say, hey, do we have that skill set? Can we help? And if we can, let's lay out a plan. And then that plan includes like the scope, what we would do. It also includes a budget. Like, here's what we think it would cost. And then a timeline, just to make sure everybody's on the same page about what we're going to do. Now, stuff often changes, right? So it's not like this is like hey, this is it. But when I start thinking about like engaging with a client, it's not just like, hey, we're going to do X and then that's it. Most of the time I'm thinking of, if I don't know what they want, how can I be a good advisor? How can I give them advice? Because many times people that are sophisticated entrepreneurs will call me and we'll work together and they'll get it right away. Hey, I need someone to be like a legal advisor for me. But sometimes you're dealing with people who they're growing into their business. And so they don't always know, like, hey, how do I even use an advisor like a lawyer? They don't know. They don't get it. Like, sometimes they're like, sometimes they think I tell them what to do. Right. And which is not really what a lawyer does, or at least in my experience. Right. It's like you decide what to do. I advise you about the risks, and I can tell you, hey, I think there's a huge landmine. Don't step here. Right. But if you want to step there, I just want you to know, hey, I think there's a landmine. If you want to step there, go ahead. Right. The other thing I tell people is that I'm not trying to be your lawyer. If it takes a long time to find the right people, whether it's on the team or whether it's even as a client or an advisor, right? So when I'm having this initial discussion, I almost always tell people, like, hey, to be your lawyer for one project or one matter is not really my goal. Like, I'd rather have a client for a very long time, the next 10 years, let's say. And so if I know what you want over 10 years, then one, I can advise you. And two, then I will understand and help give you advice that gets you where you want to go, not for the next 30 days, but like for the next 10 years. And I think the advice changes, and it's actually better when I understand, like, hey, where are we going? And I think if someone just says, hey, no, I don't want to tell you where I want to go or what I want to do, it's kind of a red flag for me. Like, well, wait, what are you not telling me? What's going on? Why aren't we being open with each other? And one of the core values at Rendios is treat people like people. And that's one of the main things that we look for in even a client is like, hey, are you treating us? Are you telling us everything? Are you withholding stuff and then maybe doing something that you don't want to tell us about? And that's a red flag. So to me, it's like, it goes both ways. I want to know, they need to know how we can help and the services that we can provide and what we have experience with. But I also want to know, hey, what are you trying to do?
I love the fact that the foundation of your relationship with a new client is listening and understanding what they want, because so many advisors, consultants come in and they have a quiver on their back that's got 3 or 4 solutions that they're really good at, but don't always fit the client situation. And it's frustrating when you get an advisor or a consultant that comes in and they pull out their quiver and say, here, this is what we're doing. It's like, no, you don't understand the problem yet. So let's talk about entrepreneurs, and what legal decisions do entrepreneurs tend to postpone that ultimately become expensive problems? What do they not want to deal with that ends up biting them?
Well, sometimes it's getting the right team of advisors. I won't even say just a lawyer, but sometimes they put off getting the right team together, whether it's accountant, right, lawyer, sometimes like the right insurance agent, the right banker. And then it really depends on what your business is for all the other advisors. I think, not having a good advisor can really be harmful, right? The right team of advisors. I think also when you look at, depending on what you're trying to do, there are multiple decisions you put off. Sometimes it's, hey, we got started, but we didn't think about our intellectual property. We didn't think about our brand. We didn't think about protecting it. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to sell my business, but I didn't kind of clean house beforehand. And so now I can't get as high of a price as I would have liked. If I would have started thinking about this 12 to 24 months before I wanted to sell, then maybe we could have spotted a few things that now are kind of bringing the price down a little bit. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to buy a business, but I didn't think about what specifically we needed to get in place legally or otherwise to buy a business, to buy a particular business. So there's so many decisions that need to be made. I think that's where I just tell people, like, that's where you got to have a good team, whatever it is. Like, you just have to have the right team in place, whether it's accountant, attorney. I mean, those are the two big ones for business owners. Is like, you got to have good people in those roles. But there's tons of other ones as well. Like, I look at a great insurance agent as very valuable for a business owner. That's a key part of the business. Same thing if you're doing it. Just, there's so many different types of advisors. It just really depends on what you do. But that to me is one of the biggest mistakes, not having the right team ready to go when you need them.
I love that team approach. And when I was a baby accountant many years ago, we did a lot of high net worth estate planning, and it was always focused on the client's team, the insurance, the trust person, the attorney, and the accountant. And somebody has to quarterback it, but collaboration between those members in the best interest of the client really serves the client well. And it helps young advisors meet other professionals and expand their network and their business. So that team approach is great. And then the other thing you said that resonated with me was when a client wants to sell their business, they have in mind what they think that business is worth. And it's usually up here. Yeah. When in reality, when you take a look under the hood and you realize that the books and records aren't auditable or reviewable, and the processes aren't in place, they haven't trained the leadership behind them, they really need to start thinking about that liquidation event when they start the business so that they can do everything in their power to get a premium for when they sell that business.
Yeah, I'd say, John, too, like, one thing to think about is sometimes the decisions they make at the very beginning, they look back when they're trying to sell and they're like, oh, I wish I did that. You know, I wish I were a C Corp and I could have had qualified small business stock. I wish I wasn't an S Corp right now. There's like a lot of stuff that happens, right? So that's where having the right team from the very beginning can make a huge difference.
I have such a pet peeve with S Corps, especially in law firms. Now, if it's a one-person law firm or one owner law firm, and it will always be that, I'm fine with that. But a lot of attorneys, they don't necessarily have a financial or tax background. Some do. They will see somebody on TikTok or Instagram saying you should be an S Corp, pay yourself $20,000 and take the rest out in distributions. You'll save all kinds of money. It's just false. But the biggest issue I have with an S Corp in a professional firm, whether it's accounting or law or architecture, is the pro rata distributions. And the only way I can differentiate is on the W-2. And so I think a partnership is a much more, or an LLC tax is a partnership, much more flexible vehicle to achieve the same goal. Yes, you're giving up some potential payroll tax savings, but the flexibility is much more valuable to me.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me about AI. And a few years ago, artificial intelligence was a bad word in the legal realm, and it's becoming more and more accepted. People are embracing it, especially smaller and mid-sized firms. It allows them to compete up. Do you have any good use cases for AI that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, gosh, I use it all the time. I mean, I love AI. Just from the sense of it does allow us to, I mean, I probably, don't need an associate as soon as, maybe I think I would. The research capabilities are amazing. And frankly, it's even very effective in the non-legal service parts of the firm, right? We tell clients we're going to record the initial discovery call, so we get consent to do that. But that helps us in that follow-up, right? Create a scope of work or help me, figure out what I missed, right? So we're getting consent to do certain things with it from our clients. But I'm also using it for marketing. We're using it to create some of the marketing copy and do some of those things that maybe we would have hired out 5-10 years ago. So there's just the use cases are incredible, frankly. We pay for, I think, 3 or 4 different legal specific AI services. So they're very powerful, very useful. Even I'll just say this, like proofreading, it's incredible. Like some of the legal specific proofreading software is amazing, and it catches things that, I'm like, I can't even send a document out because it's like, it saves so much time. We're missing not just typos, but like references and things like that, and to terms that aren't defined that you use. It's like, man, that's amazing. It's honestly incredible. So I think like I would say the use cases are amazing. There's so many, and also it's growing. We're constantly in discussions about, well, how do we use it better? Whether it's for client service or just running the firm. Like, it's not just like for client service. It's also like, hey, how can we use it to track certain deadlines? How can we use it for marketing? How can we use it for any part of the business? Now, certainly we have to pay attention to like client confidentiality, which we do, get consent, let people know what we're using it for. But like I said, there's so many use cases. It's amazing. Now, one thing I will say about it though is it doesn't drive the bus. Like, we don't say, hey, let's use AI for everything. It's like, what we've learned is if we don't have good processes in place before we start to use AI and think about how can AI make us better, it actually ends up more challenging. So to me, you got to start with the process and have the right process in place. Because sometimes you might say, hey, we're going to make a process better that's not that good to start with. Like, let's cut a bunch of stuff and simplify first, and then think about how we can make it more efficient.
I love those use cases, and I absolutely love the transcript summaries from meetings. Even though we take notes, and I can reading versus hearing things, I retain more of what I hear, so I can usually, get the concepts out of a meeting. But to have it summarized, and there might be something you missed, and now you've got a record in your work papers. You don't have to scan what you wrote down that only you can read on the yellow legal pad.
Right. That's right.
My assistant comes in constantly, says, what's this word? I'm like, come on, you know what that word is. But she does.
And you're like, I don't even know, actually, but I'm not even sure.
I can figure it out with the words before and after. But so you're building your own firm, Rendios, and you're taking all your experience from all the other firms and all the other businesses that you've been involved with. What are you intentionally doing different there?
I think number one is, okay, there's a number of things. So number one, we're trying to keep costs low so we don't crush people with overhead. So we can have more of the money go to the people who are doing the work. Like, that's number one. It's just, hey, do we really need to spend this money, right? Internally, is it adding value to the client, right? So that's number one. I think number two is we have core values, and we actually will hire and fire people on the team if they don't meet those core values. We'll also hire and fire clients that way too. If they don't match our core values, we won't represent them, or we'll stop representing them. And that's a big deal. Like, I've been in previous firms where it's like, hey, this is a big client. They pay us a bunch of money. Just do it, And I'll never forget, there was one day where we fired a client, very big client, because they didn't treat the people very well that worked on the matter. And it was tens of thousands of dollars per year. And that's tough to do. But our number one core value is treat people like people, not like an object, not like a piece on somebody's chessboard that's just trying to gain some ground. And that's very important to me as a person. Like you can have a different authority. You can have authority over people. You can have people who are employees, right? You can have people be a supervisor, or a boss, or a manager. But I'm very cautious about how we use the phrasing, the language that we use. Someone years ago said, "Oh, John, I work for you." And I was like, "You work for me? What are you talking about?" It's like, no, we work together. Like, I supervise you, but you don't work for me. Like, we work together. And I think that phrasing, I was intentionally pushing back on it, because that's not the dynamic I want in a workplace, because that creates fear, anxiety. I want people to feel comfortable, want them to feel secure. I want them to feel like we look at them as a person. And I also want to create the dynamic where it's not just do what I say. This is not do what John says, or do what the boss says, or do what the person at the top says. Because sometimes what I've learned over many years is sometimes the person at the top isn't right, and they really need people to cover them. Like, I worked for a judge many years ago, clerked for a judge when I was in law school. In the very first day, it was a wonderful conversation, but the judge's clerk, the permanent clerk or full-time clerk, came to me and she sat me down and she said, "Hey, I want you to understand what your job is here. When you're doing a research or bench memo, they call it, right, where the lawyer is essentially reading the cases and reading the pleadings and prepping what they call a bench memo that goes to the judge so they can prep for a hearing." She said, "Your job is not to do the research. Your job is to protect the judge. The judge doesn't have the time to read all these cases. He may, but you have to assume that you need to catch every little thing that the parties are putting in that might not be correct or might not be correctly saying the law, and protect the judge. And that I really took that to heart. I was like, wow, what a cool little lesson that you get as a law student, right? And sitting in a federal judge's office, learning from, this full-time clerk that's worked with this judge. She's thinking, I want to protect the judge and I want to teach the clerks here to protect the judge. I say the same thing to our paralegals and our other attorneys. Like, you have to protect the people that you're giving the work to. And that includes our clients. You got to protect them. So that's your job. And so it doesn't matter like who's above who in like an org chart and accountability chart. It's really like, hey, we're all people trying to do the best job that we can.
It sounds like you have a fantastic culture and you're empowering your people. And I love the fact that you're so right. Employees, staff don't want to work for onerous clients that aren't A clients. They love to work for collaborative, good clients. They can be demanding, but respectful.
Yeah.
But when you throw them the D client that you're unwilling to fire, it's just demoralizing. And
if you wouldn't do the work yourself, let's put it that way. It's like, oh, I don't want to work with them, right? That's not good. Or they come back and this person yelled at me. It's like, wait, what's going on? That's not what we're trying to do here.
Hey, I got an off the wall question for you. Are you left-handed?
No, I'm right-handed. Why?
Okay. All right. Well, because you strike me as very creative, and I'm a round peg in a square hole because I'm a left-handed accountant, and so.
Oh, got you. Yeah.
Hey, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about your podcast, The Intense Life. Tell me about that.
Well, I love doing it. First of all, I like having great conversations with people. It really started years ago with me doing interviews and sharing information, talking about books that I've read that I really enjoyed. And then with the law firm starting, I said, hey, I want to have a podcast. I don't want it to be a legal podcast though, because sometimes I think the legal stuff is boring, though I do try to make it interesting. One of my presentations, every company is a media company, is very fun, very entertaining. People love it. But what I wanted to do with the podcast was just have conversations with cool people about topics that I think are interesting. And that's the goal, is to really have those conversations and connect with these people who I know that I love to talk to, but life sometimes gets in the way where it's like, I don't have time to talk to them. So if you ever check out some of the guests that we have on there, they all have fascinating stories. And sometimes we pick a topic. It could be a movie, could be a book, could be an article I wrote one time, and we just talk about it. And it's usually fun. Yeah, I think the last podcast to come out, I interviewed two people who I hired at my very first job out of college I think about 20 years ago. And we've stayed in touch over the years. The one of them I gave him his first job out of college also. So but it was hilarious and brilliant and fun. And when I listened to it, I smile. But then when I literally think like, what great advice these guys are given on, living in the entertainment space and how to be, how to get, they always say gigs too, because they're musicians and artists. So it's like how to get a gig, right? And how to get the next gig, not just to get the first one. Like, how do you get hired again? So that stuff is so fun to me and precious. And it's really a chance to be myself, express some of my own personality, but in a fun environment.
Well, that's great. And I will check it out. That gig economy that those folks are in, we're in the same business, right? We're out there getting gigs. Our gigs are client work.
We're not cool enough to call it a gig, John.
All right, we're not cool enough to call it a gig.
We can try. This is like where we're going. We are, feel free. But I feel like I feel cool when I'm like, I got a new gig. It's kind of fun.
Well, we'll come up with a different phrase. But, I tell my kids I get hired and fired all the time. I mean, sometimes you get annuity projects that repeat year after year, and sometimes it's just a big project, and you're hoping that you did a great job, and they refer you to the next gig, non-gig.
Yep, exactly.
So you also have written books, children's books. So I want to hear about that. And then let's get into storytelling. I mean, I think a lot of what advisors do, if they can explain it to a client who's not as technically expert in the subject matter as the advisor is, they have to be able to do it in a way that people can understand. And I think of some of the great storytellers, Paul Harvey, Zig Ziglar, even Andy Griffith. I mean, these people have a cadence. Morgan Freeman. I mean, I would listen to him say anything. So talk about storytelling and in your writing.
Well, first, I love storytelling. I mean, that's probably one of the first things I wanted to do when I was a kid or teenager, just tell stories. I went to film school, right? I love telling stories. I wrote screenplays. I love that stuff. And I acted too in high school and college. So to me, it's like, I love the idea of storytelling. I love telling stories itself. that's partially why I started writing and started capturing some of my thoughts. I wrote over 100 articles in a span of a couple of years, I think, that are all on my website as blog posts, and they're also on Medium. But I really needed an outlet to tell stories. And I was actually writing a nonfiction book about reinventing yourself in, let's see, 2015, 16, 17. And then in 2019, I just was writing 15 minutes a day. That's all I had. And a really good friend said, hey, you got to, this book you're writing, you're not going to be done until you're like 70. So you got to write something soon. So I was like, well, what am I going to write? And it's just how it so happened that he came over to my house and my kids started telling him stories that I told the kids at nighttime to get them to go to sleep. And he was like, John, these are hilarious. You gotta share these with the world. I think you should pause this other book and write down these stories that you told the kids. And I was actually very embarrassed because they're silly children's stories, just designed to make my kids laugh. Like, no, nothing else. And I never thought that anybody else in the whole world would ever hear about these stories. I just was like flabbergasted, shocked that my kids were telling the stories. But the more that I thought about it, the more I thought, maybe I should write these down and put them in a publication, or put them in a published book form, I should say. And I talked to my wife, and then I said, well, what if I did it with my kids too? We taught the kids how to start a business, how to be entrepreneurs, how to be creative. And what if we just did it together as a family? And that's what happened. So the first book is Cinder Toot. It's the Cinderella story, except when the clock strikes midnight, she runs out of the ball and she loses her slipper, but she actually bends down to pick it up. And then when she's picking it up, she toots. So all the prince has is the smell of her toot and not the slipper. So he has to go around the kingdom asking all the maidens to pass gas to find the smell of his true love. And that's Cinder Toot. And that's the story I told my kids, and they loved it. Like literally days and like, I mean, probably 100 times in a row. They just loved it. And I would tweak it every time, like make it different, add to it. But then when we did one, and we were like, let's do another one. So we did Santa Toot. Santa gets stuck in the chimney and, has to toot his way out. And then a sequel to Cinder Toot, Children of Cinder Toot. And then I said, okay, I don't want to do any more toot books because people, I actually thought my law firm was going to fire me. Like I thought they would fire me. I thought clients would fire me. I was very embarrassed to start. And then I just said, well, if someone fires me over this, I don't know. Maybe they don't have a sense of humor. I don't know. It's like, I think it's funny, making kids laugh, read it with the kid and see if what you think then. But then we did a book called Manpunzel, which is just a gender switch for the Rapunzel story, with a man in the tower with hair that just grows. And he was rescued by a girl, which all my girls loved. So it really became just my way to kind of tell fun stories that made my kids laugh. And it turned into something bigger. It turned into what we call Three Girls and a Dad. And there's more books coming. There's 4 more that are written. And so that's
just fantastic. And your children, fun. When they grow up, will have those to pass on to their kids. That's going to be great.
Yeah. And one thing too, with the books, I'm trying to implement what I tell our clients. Like I'm doing the same stuff that I tell our clients, protecting intellectual property and everything related to it. So it's kind of like been fun for me to be on the other side and say, well, I'm doing the exact same thing I'm telling you to do.
That's great. Hey, before we wrap up, I want to get back to something we talked about on the pre-show, that you and I both love to cook. You're probably a better cook than I am. And, my wife likes to plan, and she'll write out on a chalkboard what the food is for the week, what dinners are going to be. I don't always like them all, but I like most of what she does. She's a great cook, but I don't like to plan. I like to go to the store and see what's good. So if you were going to cook, and I know you love to cook for people, what would you cook for somebody, regardless of what they want? If you knew what they wanted, if what you wanted is what they wanted, what would you make?
Well, I actually love Middle Eastern food. So I would probably make some Middle Eastern recipe that I love. And it probably would start with what I mentioned to you, it's a dish called mahamra, which is like almost like hummus, but with roasted red pepper. It's like almost like a paste. You blend it together, you roast red peppers and onions. And I told you a Fresno chili pepper in there make it a little spicy, but it's just a wonderful dish. And you just want to just put it on everything. It's fantastic.
And are you sharing these recipes anywhere?
I don't share the recipes, but I do have a menu on my website, johnmashni.com. You can go to, there's an area, you can see all my favorite stuff. So it's designed so if someone was going to come over, they could look at the menu online and say like, hey, this is what, please make this, or, let's have this together. I also have a secret menu too, which is password protected, which you got to figure out the password to get in there. But that's one that if you come over, I'll show you the secret menu. So you got to be at my house to see what's on the secret menu.
Yeah. So that's like my wife's family. They each have their own specialty that's really good. And they'll tell you 90% of the recipe, but they'll leave out the key ingredient. So you can never replicate it.
I love it. I love it.
Hey, John, before we wrap up, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you or learn more about Rendios or anything else that you do in your creative lifestyle?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I mean, for Rendios, rendios.com, RENDIOS. For me, generally, johnmashni.com, just my name.com. That's a great, you can find out everything. My articles are there, the menu's there. If you want to see that, there's also a link to the law firm website. And then 3girlsandadad.com is for all the children's book related stuff. And then I'm on socials, LinkedIn, and everywhere else.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you all for listening to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Our mission is to help law firm owners build stronger firms, deliver exceptional client experiences, and create firms that last for generations. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.